Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Leak Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and we have a very special guest with us tonight, Aeon Pi Phlo. He's got a really cool website right now, and we're going to be discussing 90 problems and 90 solutions, basically. Not every single one, but that's the overall topic. You can check out his work at aeonpiphlo.com. Aeon, it's great to have you on here with us tonight. How are you doing?
Excellent. Yourself?
Doing fantastic. So I just want to say, before we get started, you reached out to us here at the Leak Project a few weeks ago. Actually, I don't even think it was a few weeks ago. It's probably just more like a week or so ago. And we were able to put something together. I went to your website, and I saw at the very front of it, our unified mission, elevating brilliant local innovations into thriving global solutions. And I did a little more research into what you're doing, and I think it's just great. So if you would, for our listeners and people that haven't heard of you before, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll segue from there.
Perfect. So a little bit about myself is I kind of grew up on the side of the tracks that a lot of people in America grow up on, where you have to prove you're tough early. I grew up under a father who believed that you never spare the rod because you'll spoil the child. He was a very abusive man, and so it pushed me out of the house, pushed my mom out of the house, and pushed my brothers and sisters out of the house eventually. I left home when I was 10 and was on the streets of LA by the time I was 12. And then was able to get back into where my mom was at. It was unsafe to be with her for a while. And then finally I was able to get back in with her and try to start, doing what a teenager would be about ready to do. And to keep the story short, for me, I started realizing early on that there was a lot happening in the world that wasn't supporting new life and wasn't supporting, children, and wasn't giving, our generation an opportunity, which was the 70s and 80s and 90s, an opportunity to really learn about what was coming down the pipeline and what was already past the 11th hour and our real history and, the state of the earth, etc. So I began, probably when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, went to college for medical anthropology and began to learn something about the state of our culture and how it's affected on a medical level as well as on a spiritual level, physical level, and what environments were surrounding those people who were suffering from X. And that took me deeper into a study of just really learning about the Earth and finding out that the Earth isn't doing so well and hasn't been doing so well for some time. But people have been so locked into this technological craze and this industrial revolution that they got left behind and didn't even know it. And so I began self-same teaching from that point forward and began learning as much as I possibly could about what was really happening. And it took quite a while to catch up because, as you may know, calling yourself the Leak Project, there's a lot that's not being leaked for quite some time. And only maybe in the last decade have we seen those floodgates start to open.
Well, it's been great the past decade, too. And with that said, it seems like for every gem that's out there, there's going to be 8 piles of crap that you have to sift through to get to the truth, So you really got to be careful what you're finding out on the internet. And I applaud people that actually get to the data and don't just say, well, I heard this, and my friend Bob said that his brother's uncle told him about this thing that's going to happen. And that's what I like, what you're doing is you're kind of bringing local thriving communities together and not just talking about it, you're actually going out there and doing it. So
yeah, we're showing up on the land. And in many cases, the first thing I have to do if I show up on the land is clean up. And I've been on 27 projects now. And all shapes and sizes, all types of people, and some very interesting. We have some very interesting data, and we've kind of changed our direction in the last couple of years into just really focusing on what it will take to create a self-sustainable, self-sufficient living environment, and how to teach people because people are coming out of a state. I'll just put it that way. How to teach people how to live amongst each other, not to develop these, rulerships, not to develop cohesion, to develop emotional intelligence, and to be able to take in their environment in whatever state it's in and begin to restore it to a healthy living environment. Now, and so go ahead.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were pausing there for a second. If you can actually bring things back to the way that they were before the industrial boom. And I got to say, I think that there's so many good things out there with industry and technology and advancements. I mean, that's fantastic. But the problem is there's got to be a balance there. And I think that we're at the point now with the resources, technology, knowledge base available, we could produce things that use far less resources and go a lot longer, last, for longer periods of time before they break. So with that said, bringing local communities and stuff together, I think makes a big difference. So yeah, please continue.
Truly. And it's really about, right at that point, it's really about surviving or thriving. And, we've been taught to survive. We've been taught that we've had to survive for quite some time, that we were surviving our parents' mistakes or what have you. And we're moving out of that. We're moving out of that state into what does it take for just me, an individual, to live in a consistent state with myself. So I grew up eating hamburgers from McDonald's, and I grew up doing the things everybody else did. I drank a 64-ounce Mountain Dew every single day, and went to work and sweated, and it did hard labor, building houses and etc. And so I totally get that it's, for some people it's a lot harder than for others, especially if they've had drug addictions or pharmaceuticals or blah blah blah. So, to teach somebody to move out of that, fight or flight syndrome and that survive syndrome, we've decided that the best way to do that is to get them into a balanced ecosystem. So this is why with the 90 issues and 90 solutions, now I've outlined, this project is a writing project. It's also going to be, there's screenwriters who have stepped forward and say they want to make each one into a film. There's writers who want to potentially turn the whole thing into a book. We have comic book writers who say, we could make a dozen heroes out of this and the villains and make it really infotaining and edutaining. And, be able to really keep the focus on what is important. Like the first one is the bees. Einstein said if the bees disappear, we had 2 years. And so what has our infinite, genius and technologists done? They began to genetically modify bees, potentially creating bees, potentially creating drones that are supposed to act like
right,
bees.
The drone bees.
Yeah. All of that is just to try to maintain an environment, try to maintain balance in an environment that is consistently failing and consistently showing up year after year with more mass extinctions. And we're so caught up in this rat. I'll just stop right here. We're so caught up in this rat race of surviving that we're not recognizing the lines and their connecting dots and how one thing does lead to another and how you can see the decline in each and every place that it's happening. Where it started, how it got to the place that it is now, and why it's still happening moving forward. Go ahead.
And I want to kind of give the microphone to you here in a second, but I just have to jump in because it makes me think about how you go to the grocery store, and if you want to pick up some organic fruits and vegetables, they cost about 50% more, sometimes double, even more than that. And then when you get into certain products like cereal, breads, etc., the food that has less stuff in it, less crap, it costs more money. So it's like, okay, so how does this make sense? Well, they say that if they're going to get this corn without spraying stuff all over the crops, that they've got to have a lot more people out there and pay higher labor costs. But then when you talk to people that actually were a part of farms that weren't sprayed with all these nasty chemicals, GMO seeds, etc., many years ago, they said that there was less problems with what was, with the crops themselves causing different diseases, the soils, and so it seems like there's a give and take in every scenario. So let me get this correct, what you're talking about is doing local type stuff, so you don't have to outsource something on the other side of the world, and even though they're producing it for cheaper over there, if you're doing it here locally, then you can cut down on the transportation costs and provide things here that are going to be more consistent and easier on the environment.
Correct. And it's all about crowdsourcing today, so, to be able to live in a thriving environment, you have to create your own way. And so, you don't need, we need bees everywhere. So, there are companies that are now stepping forward who are offering anybody who wants to start their own apiary everything they need to do it. And that gets it started. Now, there's all kinds of people with that survival mechanism still going off of them, and they're afraid of bees. Well, I mean, I've never, ever, ever, ever had to wear a suit. And I've been around bees for about a decade now. And I will sit by the hive and watch them wake up and sit down there with the sunset and watch them go to sleep. And they've never, ever given me a problem. The only time they give a problem is when you're disturbing them and when they think they're being threatened. So it's not really a big deal to be a beekeeper today. It's actually a very, very good thing to learn how to do because it'll teach you a lot about yourself. But that's just one aspect. So, getting people more into this, into this aspect is going to provide real, bees for the environments. But that's only one step. And so another way of thriving is to invite into your environment, like you're talking about, organic foods. And yes, it's gone way past where it should have as far as food is concerned. And I eat a very good diet today, but it took a long time to get here, and I almost didn't make it. My body, I had leaking gut. I had all kinds of stuff from eating McDonald's hamburgers every single day, and drinking a beer with my buddies every single night. I had no idea I was being killed from the inside out. Had no idea, being poisoned. And then I started looking at the back of the boxes, and it blew my mind that I hadn't done that yet. And then I got a few people in my life who said, "Here, this is how you can bring your life back into order." And I joined a raw food revolution back in 2007. We put on an event in Sedona called the Raw Spirit Festival, and brought 2,500 people to Sedona all around raw food. And then I started meeting the cancer patients and all the people who were dying of cancer because of their diets. And many of them are still alive today because they changed their diets simply to raw organic food. And then I started stepping into this world and checking out, why is it that they're needing to throw so much poison into the ground in order to keep these pests away? Well, first the thing is companion planting. So if you know exactly what to plant, where to plant, how to plant, then you won't have certain problems in your ecosystem. You can plant according to what is necessary to take care of those problems in the plant. Next thing is soil amendment. So the biggest deal was they were using soil that was already depleted of most of its minerals. So it had no way of coming back to begin with. And all those eggs were down in that soil, or tilled down in that soil, just ready to pop out to the next whatever was available. So these are all just basic things that our great-great-grandfathers knew and practiced and had no issues with. You didn't have mass invasions back then. You only had mass invasion when people started domesticating and bringing things together that didn't belong together to begin with.
No,
And you go ahead, please.
no, yeah. So with right now, what you're doing basically, going and reaching out to local businesses, to schools, to mom and pop shops.
So for me personally, I've been reached out to for quite some time. And so my job for my company, Timeless Solutions, is I'm a sustainable research developer. So I've been meeting inventors with the solutions. And so my job has been to get those solutions across the board. And that's not very easy with some of these solutions. And so what the 90 issues and 90 solutions is about telling the people what the issue is, exactly what we know. And it's just, I'm keeping it simple. I'm doing like 12 links. This is what the issue is. 12 links. This is what's being done about it right now. And 12 links. This is what you can do today, moving forward, to support this specific. We have, like I said before, we have people who are interested in turning each one of these into a short film, and then making that into a living documentary, so that we can begin to release this information from the public view. So it's not my view, it's not, and I do really good vetting. I go and make sure that whatever link I'm putting up there has been, recognized by science and whoever it is that needs to recognize it during that research. And it's also, this project is an open, crowdsourced project. So anybody can be an author. Anybody can enter their input. I have a number of people who are experts in their field who are beginning to enter their input. I have a number of people who would like to enter their input but remain anonymous. So we've created a page where you can either be anonymous or you can be an author. You can be a writer. And you can be a part of this in any way, shape, or form. You can be somebody who contributes solutions, someone who tells us more about the issues, or somebody can be who's saying, this is what we're doing on the ground right now. Next thing we're doing is we have a company that we're working with that is New Earth Events. They're doing 4 events a month. And they've agreed to do an event with us that builds a community. So we're going to take a piece of land and do an event on it that builds a home, starts an apiary, puts the mushrooms in the ground, gets the soil amendment composting going, so that those people, whoever it is that ends up there, hopefully that will be discovered during the event. Somebody will go, oh, I love it here. How do I stay here? And we'll create this internship to living ship kind of program, so that people can start getting their hands in the ground and really learning the science of, thriving. And then we're just going to continue to duplicate that process. We have some larger projects happening in other parts of the world on 5,000 acres. We have a project in Belize that's coming up that's called the Purple Paradise Resort. It is a cashless resort, and we are going to be doing that on a property that is 12,500 acres.
How does that work? Cashless resort.
completely self-sufficient, just like I'm telling you. You know, you start with a prosperity plan. So you bring in the bees, you bring in the trees, you bring in the things that are going to produce textiles. If you can grow hemp, that is a magical textile. You can use it for so many things. In Belize, you can. Um, and
What about
so it's
Colorado
just
too, right? I mean, in Washington
Colorado
State.
still has, yeah, absolutely. And we're still working with the regulations there. You know, I'm in Oregon. So we've just come into this now, and we're talking to the woman who started the AMA here in Oregon and telling us how we can begin to be progressive in this state. Oregon itself is also choosing to be a non-GMO state, and they're slowly being able to get that to happen. So
That's
this is
great.
great. Yeah, truly. And really, it's all grassroots, right? It's all whatever anybody can do to get a little bit of traction so people catch on. I think that we need every single spring community garden projects. Everybody should be getting out there. I've got 100,000 seeds that I'm willing to share. I don't need that many to just grow my next garden, you know, and I'm going to get 100,000 more from every single garden that grows, you know, and if we just started doing these little tiny things, we'll make a bigger difference than we have before.
Now,
And so,
let me ask you
yes,
about your inventors. That's one thing that I think, I mean, geez, if I had access to inventors that were coming to me saying, hey, check this thing out. I mean, talk to us about some of that stuff if you would.
absolutely. So, like I said, the first thing I have to do when I show up on a property for moving forward to build a village or a community, if it's an established property, is clean up. The same thing happens with my inventors. So these guys and women are geniuses. I mean, they are beyond school. There's nothing that school can teach them anymore. They, matter of fact, many of them dropped out of school early, much like myself, realizing there's nothing you can teach me. Some of them have reinvented their fields. Some of them have come forward now that they've reinvented with their fields with the next best thing. And we're talking, you know, disruptive technology, as it's called. We're talking, you know, things that are so lightweight and easy, we wonder why we never did it before. We're talking about simple innovations as well, like, you know, how you're supposed to sit on your toilet. You know, most people don't know you need to raise your feet up to get the proper angle for your body to properly release. We all just sit down there and squat and go, ah, and we wonder why we're straining. I've been using one of those little step up stools now for about 7.5 months, and I never ever have a problem. It's just like, oh, it's all done. And that's just one simple thing that an inventor, somebody realized and invented something for, and is slowly coming out to the public. And everybody makes a joke about it, but it'll save your life. And so we're really about trying to present a pathway for these inventors first to save their life, because many of them are sick and tired beyond reason. When I reach them, when they reach out to me, sometimes it's their last straw, and they're asking for somebody to hear them. And when I start looking at what they have to offer, I'm like, oh my God, how is it possible that the people in your profession cannot hear you? And they'll go on and on and on and on and on. And in many cases, they were just smart enough to go, oh, I just better shut up. And they went back in their garages and started creating on their own. And lo and behold, their theories were correct. And they got a working model of what they only imagined. Some of them had come across a box of Tesla's, inventions. Some of them have come across something else that led them down a rabbit hole. And what most of these guys and women have realized is that this rabbit hole doesn't have an end. It goes in all directions once you get down there. And there's multiple rabbits trying to mislead you. And the main purpose is to waste your life away so you never get out. So what we've attempted to do, and in some cases we've gotten gentlemen and women across the finish line, and in some cases they didn't make it that far. And in some cases we've never heard from them again. And it's really difficult today to protect them. And so I try to just reach people on a friendly state. Like I don't overwhelm them with anything. I listen to them. If they start giving me keywords that tells me they're already overwhelmed, then I begin to work on them. I was a life coach for 15 years. I pay attention. I listen. I see where their awareness lives. I see what they tell me every single time we talk, so that I can find a way to start breaking through that darkness, so that they can start to see the light. And I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form. I believe in this earth and the sentience that exists on this earth in its life, in the life here. But I do recognize that everybody can have a miracle happen for them. And these geniuses, these inventors, these innovators, these people who are willing to push the envelope past the limits just to see if anyone will hear them, deserve it not more than anyone else, but as much as everyone else. And so we want to create living environments for them to come into, be able to get begin developing, working with people who are not only in their field but in their tribe. I mean, then that's not, that's just, like-mindedness today. That's coexistence today. That's cohabitation, peaceful inhabitants that are all looking towards the same goal, bringing restoring this planet back to a paradise. And so, I have NDAs with most of these people, so I can't really speak to what they have. I can say the ones that are now crossing the finish line, that are in the blue sky stage, are phenomenal. It will change the world the day they come hit the market. And we see it last year, more so than I've seen it in the decade. In the last year, there have been more cutting edge innovations, faster than light innovations, so fast that we don't even have time to catch up anymore before the next person goes out. Yeah, we have 3D printing. I was like, wow, 3D printing, that's amazing. And then the next,
you just read my mind, man. That's crazy.
and then not even 3-4 months later, they're like, now we're into 4D printing. And today I had an inventor come to me and says, we're using 6D printing to do what we're about to do. And I'm like, wow. And I already knew way back when with 3D printing that they were printing organic material. But it started in a medical establishment, printing ears and, this, that, and the other. So I already knew way back then when I first started hearing about it that it was something that was going to be phenomenal. And now it's come to the place to where we really don't need anything other than a printer. And we can print out all our cups exactly how we want them. We can print out all our dishes. And when we're done with them, we can throw them in the compost pile. And we just eliminated waste overnight. And these are the kind of innovations that I'm looking to put forward with these 90 issues and 90 solutions. Just sharing with the people, from the people, exactly what is happening. And, if it can be shared in America, then great. If it can't, then great. There's plenty of countries that are opening their hearts, opening their minds, becoming conscious of their environment and changing their ways for the whole. Iceland is a perfect example of that. Costa Rica has never been at war. And they don't even have a standing military. And we can learn something from the people who are doing it. But Costa Rica has poor water conditions. And these are the things that boggle my mind. How does one happen without the other? How do one people learn how to do something so well and everybody else doesn't get infected by it? Because if we learn to do something bad, it'll be infecting the whole crowd in a week. And it'll become the most trendy thing that everybody jokes about. And every comedian is wasting their time on stage pointing out. And it's not a laughing matter. We are at the 11th hour. It is past time. We don't have time to waste. Look at the Earth. She will tell you every single volcano on this planet is coming out of dormancy. There are gentlemen that were just on the scene not too long ago who watched a sandbar appear in front of them and an island show up shortly after that. And this has happened more and more. And the Earth is doing one thing. She is protecting herself. And she has done this before. We're not the first civilization here. We need to wake up to that. How many times are we digging up ancient ancestors that show us they were far smarter than we are? And we're not learning. And we're continuing down the same rabbit hole, hoping that the guy with the watch on his arm is telling us where to go and we're going to get there on time. For me, it's ridiculous. But I've taken the time to realize and to actualize and to choose to live my life according to a plan that will bring about change. I don't wish to be the change. I am change. The inventors that show up before me are change. And it doesn't matter to me I don't have a judgment for them. I'm glad they made it to the phone. I want to support them in every way I can. At the same time, I have a very strong boundary line that says, do not abuse me because I don't have time for that. And I won't be walked on and I won't be, taking every single conversation about the dramas in their life. I want action. I want to help them achieve action and help them get healthy in their mind, body, and soul so they can be effective. Because otherwise they come out to the public and they just get shot down. And skepticism is a really hard critic and hurts more people than it knows. So part of my job is to shelter, protect until they're ready. In some cases, we don't have time for them to be ready, and we've got to try to funnel that technology into the pipeline somehow. So I kind of reach out to this person, reach out to that person, and try to connect them with somebody who's going to be able to support them better than just little old me. And we don't have a huge team. You saw on our homepage how many people were sitting there when we were that team. And now we're scattered. And we have about 4 of us that live right here in this town, not my hometown, the town I'm in currently. And we're gathering together to do as much as we possibly can and trying to gather together as many people as we can. But it's really hard to gather people under a common any interest, flag, anything you want to call it. Because of the amount of drama that they're dealing with in their life, and because they're inundated by media in some cases, in some lives, and because their jobs tell them they can and cannot do certain things, and because. So, the short and sweet is 90 issues and 90 solutions is all about just that. Laying out the issues, laying out the solutions, and see where we come to in the midst of it. And how we start, where, some of us say it's uneducation. I don't know if I, buy that. I just think that we've come to a line in the sand.
Unindoctrination?
Totally, yes. And I don't say that because there's this whole sect of people that take offense. And I really am careful about words that I use because I just don't have time for that. It's just a waste of time. But yes, and yeah, definitely that.
Well, now let's go to the 90 solutions, 90 problems, and you talk about these inventors that have been basically reaching out to you, and you're helping them through processes of getting their items patented, their inventions patented. So my question is, though, you brought up what are some of the really cool things? I mean, there's got to be a few things you can share with us, a couple of gems.
I met a gentleman in the desert once in Nevada that had come across a Tesla earthquake machine. It was about 12 inches by, I think it was about 6 inches by 6 inches. It's 12 inches long and 6 inches by 6 inches. And it just had 2 wires out of it. And if you laid it vertical, wait, is that right? Yeah, if you laid it, flat on the table and put electricity to it, it would shake everything on the table until it all kind of shook off. But if you anchored it to where it was upright, and it had an anchor point, it began to shake the table, and then you could feel the room shaking a little bit. And he said it would continue to shake that building off its foundation as long as it was anchored and had electricity running to it. He was running that electricity off a 12-volt battery.
Wow. So did he actually show you? I mean, did you experience it, or did he just tell it?
I experienced it, yeah. He demonstrated it for us.
And are you guys going to, can you reverse engineer it?
So that's what he was doing. So he was working in a machine shop when he found one of these in a box stuffed under a table. Had probably been there, he said, 50, 60 years.
So he found it in what, Colorado Springs?
No, I don't know exactly where he was. He never told us that because that would disclose where he worked and all that. So he never got that far with us. But he just told us he basically worked in this machine shop, and when he was about to retire, he started replicating the machine shop in his garage in the desert. And just mind you, when I talk, I have to be very mindful of not sharing where the states are, so it's just so I protect. But anyways, he began to reverse engineer it, and he discovered that basically what it was doing was trapping air in a vacuum. And when you electrified that air, it was attempting to get out. And he thought that he could take it to the next level and create something that was perpetual, potentially over unity. I was working with another partner at the time. That partner brought him into a pipeline, and we never heard from him again. His technology has never come out. It was 7 years ago. So we got to see something really cool, but he went the way of the money. He was at the time, he couldn't pay his bills. We actually paid his electricity when we showed up there, just so he could turn the lights on and show us how to do this. And both of him and his wife were very successful, but for some reason, now after being in retirement, he was suffering and he couldn't pay the bills. So that's just another issue. Another gentleman is still very, very active today. I just introduced him to our chief science officer, and they're going to be working together on a civilian spaceship. And this is, and I can share his. I'll share his when it comes up on the YouTube. I'll share his links in the chat, in the comments. But he's oh my God, he's a genius. I mean, he got all his money from oil, and his family inherited oil, and he decided to build magnetic engines. And I met him when he was building one of his first magnetic engines. And this guy would wake up, and he's got a physicist degree, and he would wake up in the middle of the night and scale it all out in his brain and draw it out all on a piece of paper. And we'd come out in the morning, me and my girlfriend at the time, and it would be, there would be pages all over, and he'd be crashed out on the couch, and his cats would be laying all on top of him. And and I would go take his papers and try to make sense of it. And I was just learning this stuff, but I was learning a lot really fast. And I lived with him for 3.5 months and helped him clean up his life a little bit, do his dishes, whatever, and get him a good meal because he ate Hungry Man's. He threw the Hungry Man in the in that, what are they called, the not the microwave but the other thing, the oven.
Convention oven.
Yeah, and he'd throw a Hungry Man in there, and then he'd forget it, and he'd come back and eat it 4 hours later. I'm like, dude, that is hurting you. It's not right, bro. And he had no clue. He's just like, just driven. So anyways, long story short, with him, we did some amazing things in his garage with magnets. We saw, perpetual motion, and he was just off by a little bit. And some of these magnets were, which is where I started pulling away from him, because I don't know if you've ever played with high-powered magnets, like a 25-pound magnet.
I have never done that. No.
Okay. Well, you can buy them online. They're called neodymium. They're the best magnets you can get, but they're also super fragile. They'll chip off in a minute, but they're super strong. And so he had purchased these because they're the best for conducting magnetic energy. And he bought a bunch of 25-pounders, about 5 100-pounders, and one 1,000-pound magnet. So if you don't know about magnets, that 1,000-pound magnet, once it's out of its shell, could then decide at any point in time to either pull 1,000 pounds to it or go to the nearest thing that's available.
Right.
So he was playing with this thing in his garage with a putty knife on his shoe. I'm like, dude, like, let me move, let me leave. I mean, actually, I think I would, because you just don't know. You don't know when it's going to go. And right. I made the mistake of learning, just by the little 100-pounders, which are still deadly, by trying to take 2 of them, and there was just styrofoam between them. I'm amazed that they got them into the package to begin with, and then got them in the mail, and somehow they didn't, somehow they got to us. But anyways, they were in styrofoam packages, and there was 5 of them, and each of them had this little styrofoam ball about the same size of it, neck in between them. And I went to go pull one of them out, and it snapped right on my hand and connected to the next one. And my fingers were in the midst of that. I just was lucky, or it would have been smush. But he figured out how to put these things in wooden, shapes that he built, like pyramids. He scaled the Pyramid of Giza, and he put 200-pounders in there on a spindle, and then he started putting other magnets in little braces and having them face the spindle in different ways. And he'd bring in the magnetic chart and show us the field and show us how far it, was reaching, and it'd wipe all your credit cards in your wallet. And it was amazing, mind-blowing stuff. And then eventually he built a Tesla coil right in his backyard, and he was able to get volts inside his house. And like I said, today he's still working. Now he's working on a civilian spaceship, and I'll let his website explain the rest of that. But it's amazing, and it's beyond. And he's an unheard of. Nobody's ever heard of this guy. Nobody knows his genius. And he's on Facebook. He's got quite a few people that follow him, but very few people understand him. And some of these geniuses are pretty arrogant because they know, they've seen with their own eyes their theories come true. They have the right to be field tested, but or at least taken under the wing by some kind-hearted soul. And so yeah, that's a very, very cool thing, because I think he's going to make it all the way across the board. And another one is that just came out today. He's also public, so I can share with you his thing. He's got a tree. It's a fabricated tree, but it is built out of sustainable material and non-toxic material that will make a bioclimate. Will basically create a climate around it so that it continues to contain that climate around it and produce water, energy, Wi-Fi, and all kinds, and light, and all kinds of other things, heat, all from one single structure. And we're just now, coming to work with him, and so he's just now coming into the field. But he's going to be, we'll get him right out there right away, because he's already public. And so yeah, this is something I'll also link up on the YouTube when we get to that point. And I'm just very happy to be able to have something like this, to where We can not just spoon feed the public the truth, but just share with them exactly what it is and what is really coming across that it's available to them. Because so many people in so many places are going, well, what do I do for energy? And everybody says it's solar, solar, solar. Well, it's not really solar unless you live in a really sunny state. Otherwise, it's not very efficient. It's great for backup, but most people go solar when they have tons of wind. And I say, if you want to cure energy crisis, do energy cycles. So if you have water, have little things that are generating energy from your water that light up your grounds with low voltage lighting. Have little, turbines doing that. And they could be in every single pipe in every single system. It wouldn't affect the flow at all. And there's just little simple things that we could begin implementing into our homes that will make them more efficient and more capable. And this goes all the way across to creating biochar, out of human manure, and this goes all the way across to waste and waste management. And we're very interested in waste management. And right now we have a gentleman that is coming from Australia that has the ability to process raw sewage to third world drinking water standards in 55 minutes. And all we have to do, he's made his device to where we can couple another device to it and make it first world drinking water in the next cycle. Now, of course, everybody's, oh, I don't want to drink that. But, you really don't know what you're drinking.
How would they know?
Exactly. And that's the kind of the things that, when you're dealing with Costa Rica and Mexico, where they don't have clean drinking water anywhere, they just need a solution now. They needed it yesterday. People are dying. And so they're willing to take on and try. And that's the people we want to work with. This is a nationwide global program. Everybody needs to be involved. That's why we want to crowdsource it. If it needs to be crowdfunded, they will do that. And just connect the dots. Here's an issue. It's gone past the 11th hour. We can continue to talk about it, or we can start preparing to deal with it and learn to thrive out of it. Not survive it, because everybody that survives something ends up with more than they asked for and a lot more than they can deal with. And that's kind of where we're at today. We survived wars. We survived famines. We survived a lot of things, but we did it by escapism. And we continue to escape and find a safer place to be. And that's not the answer, because the environment is still encroaching. And, and then one of the bigger issues is us encroaching on an environment and saying, we are kings of this earth and we can take out anything we want to. That's not true. It's actually kind of stupid. And I'm not meaning to step on anybody's toes, but it's real. You can't just kill the kings in our environment and think that the environment is going to do okay. You kill all the cats and the rats come and play. It's obvious. It's logical. It's real. You kill all the bees and the flowers die. And if we don't have this stuff happening very simply in our ecology, we die. And if you can look around, and I know many people are, it's on every single news station, they're dying. And they're dying from their environment. Tsunamis, earthquakes, tornadoes, volcanoes, every single thing this earth has in her arsenal, she has let out. And
I don't even think she's really got started yet, man.
I agree with you, but I don't think we'll get to see it all. I think she'll cleanse it first, like she has before. And then we're just on the earth. I also work with people like Carol Roslin, who's talking about space and what's happening out there, and I've been paying attention to that too, and that's just as big an issue. And, but we got to start here on the ground. This is where my focus is. I want to see my brothers and sisters, my children, raised in an environment that is healthy, that they don't have to worry about. I don't think that's too much to ask. And anybody else that out there that says that's too much to ask, they need to start questioning themselves, because it's about that. And we have a lot of little, feuds going on that are the, Hatfields and the McCoys that stepped on somebody's shoe way back in 1912, and we're still thinking it, and we're now thinking it's something else. And it's just a lack of emotional intelligence. There are groups on this planet right now that are doing conflict resolution the real way and getting real results. And, a gentleman that I know just showed up outside of the, ISIS camps and began to meditate out there. And he came home. So there are real ways to be able to approach these real life issues. I'm not naive, and I don't ask any of you to be. I ask you to wake up, to be aware, to take a look, to see if you care. And if you do, speak up. And if you don't want to speak up, speak quietly, and we'll share. And we don't have to know anything about you. And we'll vet your material because we want to make sure we're giving as much of the truth as we have. And this is why it's a crowdsource. That way, if anybody comes in and goes, no, no, that's not right, and they can give us proof, then we'll share that. But I'm one man doing tens of thousands of hours of research to try to get through this one project. And each one of these issues is 1,000 men, women, children acting for it. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. It's crucial. It's critical. And again, it's the 11th hour. And so, we've only got bees, radiation, soil, water was just started yesterday, and food is poison. Beginning. We brought the bees and the radiation up first because they're both very much in our face as something that needs to be taken a real close look at.
I got to jump in on the radiation real quick.
Please.
I've got a Geiger counter built into my watch. It's a military grade, and so I keep track of the radiation levels wherever I go. I've traveled the country quite extensively over the past 3 years, and out here in San Antonio, Texas, the radiation levels have doubled over the past 3 years. So whatever's causing it, it certainly has increased. And it's not enough to be, freaking me out because it's only at 0.16 microsieverts per hour. But what's interesting is 3 years ago, it hovered around 0.07, 0.08. And now it very, very rarely hits that level.
Right. And the problem with radiation is the long-term effect, correct?
There's a lot more to it than that, too. And depending on what kind of radiation it is, I mean, whether it's the radioactive isotopes, whether it's Carlsbad's, New Mexico's nuclear waste dump leaks that they've had out there, if it's the chemtrails causing the atmosphere to be depleted, so the cosmic rays are hitting us worse, if it's a combination of all of the above, I don't know. But there's definitely something going on. And you're talking about weather changes and the global changes. We've had a lot of people speculating that that could be from the chemtrails, possibly from a planetary body, from the gravitational pull that's causing getting closer to our Earth. Whether or not I believe in Nibiru, I'm still neutral on that, and I've had many interviews on that. But, so with what you're doing and the people you're connecting and contacting, I'm thinking of a article that came out a few weeks ago in South Dakota. They were selling an entire township out there for $250,000. And it was only a few acres, but the fact of the matter is it would be your entire township, so you could set up your own governor, your own mayor, well, not your own governor, your own mayor, your own sheriff, whatever you want. Get your scientists and really kind of set up this city of renaissance of just these really eclectic individuals and people that all kind of have this unique goal in mind. When I came back from Utah, I drove through Colorado and then New Mexico. I went out there last year, and I remember there was this location out in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, that had these houses that were built into the ground, and they looked like hobbit homes. So
yeah.
We checked it out, and they were using a lot of the stuff and materials that's already out there that's considered waste and garbage to many, and these homes just looked so cool. So are you going to work on doing like micro communities around the country? And have you looked into possibly setting up a foundational base, like starting up some type of headquarters and then using that as the main base of organization and structure?
So yeah, we've talked about that. We work with a group called Phoenix Voyage. They have a thing called the Phoenix Centers, and they have their plug and play ready to go. We've also have people who are masters in building with Cobb. You can work with Adobe, can do log housing. Tiny houses I think is a really smart way to go because it allows you to be mobile. And I think that we might want to be mobile until this planet calms down a little bit. That's just my feeling. I'm already mobile. I do have a home, but I also stay on the road quite a bit.
It's exciting to do that too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really gives you, it really opens your eyes. I've been all over this country, and I've seen a lot of it. And I think I'm in 42 states now, and it's amazing. It's amazing neighborhood to neighborhood. I delivered phone books for 4.5 years. And I delivered them all over New Mexico and all over Arizona and not all over Colorado, but quite a bit of it. And it was interesting. Wow, how much a change from one block to the next, and how oblivious in some cases they were to it. Clovis, New Mexico was that example.
And New Mexico is awesome. Great state.
Land of enchantment. That's the reason why there's so much going on there. But yeah, I was born and raised in Farmington, New Mexico. So I've had quite a bit of its history. Right outside of our town was where one of the second crashes from Roswell happened. I didn't get to see it myself, but I've definitely ridden my mountain bike through there a few times. Um,
I checked
so
out Dulce back in Labor Day last year. Went out there around that time, and it was really cool. We had a chance to go check out the Archuleta Mesa, and
mhm.
really neat area. I didn't see any flying saucers though. I was bummed out because I was looking.
uh, right? And they say if you're looking, you can't see them. That's what they
Right,
say.
right. I'm not looking, really. I'm not.
But yeah, to answer your question, we have several projects that are in the works. We have the larger ones I shared with you earlier, and here in Oregon, we have three other ones that are beginning this year. One is on 40 acres, one's on 20 acres, one's on 900 acres, and they're all attempting to move forward with their own plans. The one on 900 acres, we're kind of just remotely working with them, so we're offering them a aquaponics technology with vertical growing that will allow them to produce a revenue of 100 to 120,000 a year just from one system. And so they can begin to have enough food for their people and as well as have enough to be able to powder. We're recommending people not, if they're not going to dry, if they're not going to store, can, things like that, it is to powder foods so that they have a much longer shelf life and are much easier to process and use. Um, you know, um, but yes, we're very much in the works of a few communities here in Oregon. Like I said, we want to work with this event organization who will potentially get us into using the events to produce communities. I also, I just want to throw it out there. I don't watch TV anymore. I used to. There's a few shows I like and I watch them through the internet, but I don't have cable. But I used to have cable, and I used to, of course, go to my friend's house that had cable. And one of the shows that always blew my mind was those bathroom makeovers, closet makeovers, house makeovers. And and I'm like, we have a lot of empty houses and a lot of homeless. And Home Depot could get behind filling these houses and make them code housing to begin with. And we could come in there with a whole transition program to get people through their addictions. We've got doctors now that know how to change the receptors in the brain so they're actually not addicted to the drug anymore. And then they get them on raw food and begin repairing the damage that they've done. And then they get them with a life coach or emotional coach or whatever they need and take them through the stages. And so we've been talking about, potentially throwing in through the 90 issues and 90 projects with the homeless, an incubator program. So, and I'm just, this is all in its development stage. So basically what we would be talking about would be sponsoring people and bringing them into an incubator and taking care of their needs until they get back on their feet and get them into their homes. They're not going to be foreclosed on because that's bullshit too. Sorry, my language. And really give them back a life, and so they're not rotting away. And there's no reason for them to be rotting away, no matter what got them that way. It's our responsibility in most cases, especially if we live in cities and we're surrounded by empty buildings. And so that's just something I want to throw out there. It's just, I think, things like this is how we need to be thinking. We need think tanks that are thinking, how can we do this? How do we deal with this? Looking away or turning the other cheek, that just doesn't work. It's not compassionate. It's not dealing with the problem. It's hiding from the problem and hoping that it will go away and then becoming cynical and criticizing it from behind closed doors and making jokes about it and on and on and on and on. We know that with obesity, we know that with anorexia, we know that with all kinds of things that we're currently dealing with in our culture. So, let's really, change the world. One solution, one land, one human at a time. Let's do it, together, and let's do it by ourselves. For me, it's an ongoing process to take care of my own health because I lived a great portion, half my life, on the other side. So now I've had to heal inside, and I don't go to doctors. I do herbs, I do mushrooms, I do good food, and I pay attention. If something hurts, I go, why? Oh, okay. I don't know where I got that from, maybe. Or I cheated today and I had some, something that, that was out of line, or maybe I had it out of line. Maybe I had it before I had something else that was, or maybe I was too acidic, or, there's all these factors just right here at home, right inside this body that we ought to take into account. One of those factors, which is the water issue, is hydration. Half the planet is dehydrated. Half the planet doesn't even get hydrated from the water they're drinking. And it's a big issue, and it's a critical issue, and it doesn't need to be that way. We could retrofit every single house with no more expense. And every single house coming from any city water would have pure drinking water right there in their house. You know how you know that? Because you can go to a store and fill up your water bottle. And the technology is the same. It can be scaled down or scaled up. And these are things that are here in our faces, right in our environment, and we're not asking for more because we're still surviving. And so shifting gears to thriving is all about taking the issues at their face value. And if you want to dig deeper, dig for more. And then realizing what other humans have been doing or are about to do. And either opting in or opting out. But if you opt out, that doesn't give you an excuse. It doesn't give you a license to ignore. I say be smart. And if it infects your environment and shows up in your circle and people start talking about it around you, take notice and change your mind. You do some more research. Find out why you're afraid to take that step or what it is about that thing that makes you turn your back. And you might learn something about yourself that, makes you a happier person. It makes you more like you want to live on this planet. And that's kind of another big issue is a lot of people will just check out of the planet. Why do you think pharmaceutical companies make so much money? Yeah, man. I had a guy once that we helped with wheatgrass. And here's another cool story. So we sponsored him and we just gave him wheatgrass and sprouts. And we grew them ourselves and we did some pretty cool stuff with the growing technology to make them, better wheatgrass and better sprouts. And at the time we met him, his bill per month was $6,000 in drugs he had to take to wake up, to go pee, to eat, to function, to think, to do a number of things to counteract other drugs that were now too, every single day. He had like 2 of those rows in one of those big pill boxes. And in 3 months, we had him down to half that. And he was drinking 2 ounces of wheatgrass to start with, moved up to 4, eventually up to 6. It weaned him. And he felt better than ever. Jacques Fresco, Venus Project, another perfect example of that. He was not doing so well. And a gentleman that I have a pleasure to know through another friend went and sat down with him and helped him get back on his feet. And now he's back at it again. I think he just had his 98th birthday. And he's had the Venus Project for how long? And that's great material. There's nothing wrong with what he's sharing. It's definitely not science fiction anymore, And so we can take notice around us and really, really support each other. And, micro communities start right next door. They start on any piece of property you see. They start for anyone that needs a place to live. Not everybody can live together, so we got to learn how to make that happen. But we all grew up a lot of us grew up in schools where we were taught to bully each other and take make these cliques, and that's how we socialized, or didn't socialize. And so there's something that needs to happen there too, and as far as how we learn to socialize and how we learn to communicate, and conscious communication needs to be brought into the conversation. And so, yeah, I went on for a minute, so I'll pause.
Well, that's fascinating. And also, I think that education is very important. You look at people out there today, and the mainstream media really pushes this indoctrination with kids, with the cartoons out there, always make fun of your parents, you're always smarter than your parents, etc. And the stuff you learn about in school, just really doesn't seem to, there's obviously the core stuff, but it doesn't really seem like it's getting people smarter. It seems like if you look at the generations from when my grandparents grew up and living in the Depression, being able to make $20 last an entire week and make sure everybody's provided for that amount of money. Now $20 you can spend at a gas station buying some chips and a couple gallons of gas and a soda pop or whatever. But it's just really sad to see people today versus as far as an archetype overall. There's always those gems out there and people like yourself and others that are part of the projects that you're doing. And many of the people that are listening to the Leak Project right now are very astute and aware with what's going on. And that's why they listen to these programs and do the things that they do. They're the change that they want to see, just like you. So, but with that said, have you noticed also that just most people are kind of, they're dumbing down. They're not getting smarter.
Truly. I think it's a lemming syndrome.
With what, another thing too that would be fascinating, I don't know if you've looked into this or not, but there's so many buildings in cities that are probably even like big ones, like skyscrapers that, have you guys looked at doing a project where you could retrofit a skyscraper in a big city or maybe a dilapidated area like Detroit, pick it up for pennies on the dollar and set it up to where it's fully self-contained, it's producing food, you're setting up vineyards and hanging fruit and stuff like that, and set up different levels for, just something that the whole thing could actually be like a community just within the city, all within its own building.
Absolutely. And, I would say, because just recently, not very many people know this, but in a lot of the major cities, I don't know if it's hit Detroit yet, but the Crips and Bloods have have stopped war and ceasefired on each other. And
Yeah,
I
I've heard
think
about that.
I think they would be the perfect people to do that, because in Detroit, that's pretty much what's left in most of those cities. And and it's there's people that I don't know anymore, but there's people that I know people that could go out there and probably get some some elders to hear them and make that happen. But you gotta recognize, in places like Detroit, those buildings aren't empty. I lived in Hollywood for a while, and I'll tell you a story. One day, I was standing in Hollywood on Vine, about 2 blocks down from Sunset and about a block down from Hollywood, and in front of a Blue Sky Motel. There's a little short wall right there. Across the street from me is two abandoned buildings that have been abandoned as long as I have known. And in LA and Hollywood, but especially, they do sweeps. And so there'll be 15 cop cars, 4 helicopters, and and all kinds of traffic. And they'll pick one block radius and surround it and just sweep, clean it up the best they can. And so I was standing there on the street. And I'd been standing on the street for 4 or 5 hours, just kind of enjoying the day, people watching. Lots you can see in Hollywood, so you don't really need to move very far. and
Right.
and so and in that day, I probably saw a couple hundred cars, maybe a handful of people that that I conversated with, maybe a total of I don't know, a couple hundred that walked by me or that I saw out of the corner of my eye. Just all in all, it wasn't a very populated day. And when that sweep happened, I literally watched 100 people come out of the building right across the street. Some of them came out of the gutter, some of them came out of windows, some of them pried open, boards that had been, nailed. They just poured out of this building. They'd been living there for longer than I'd known, and I didn't recognize a single one of them. And it blew my mind. And the streets were crowded in 5 minutes. And people were running in all directions.
They're out, get away.
But they weren't even raiding that block. It was like 10 blocks over. And so it just told me something about what's happening, what's really happening. So just because a building is abandoned doesn't mean it is. And typically the first thing that takes over is drug addicts. And so, there's got to be that consciousness going into this. We can't just move back in. There's people that have established territory, and we got to respect that. So, but I am very open to, and we have talked about this, and there are some people in my group that are very, have some big heart for Detroit. And it's the first city. Why not? I mean, it's the proof positive that this didn't work, And so it would be a great show if we could return it back to a safe living environment and a thriving one to boot. And it wouldn't take much.
Are you reaching out to politicians or congressmen
No.
or mayors or anybody
No.
within the political realms and saying, hey, here's a brilliant idea. It will bring jobs back to the local communities. It will help people get off the streets. Bang, here you go.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way, but if you listen to the politicians today,
Oh my goodness, it's certainly entertainment. It is absolutely entertainment.
I wouldn't waste an hour with any one of them.
Hey, good for you. I mean, I'll tell you, there's always people out there. I think, though, I still think there's a few somewhere. I don't know who they are, but there's got to be people in power and in politics that actually give a damn.
I say step forward.
Hey,
You
wouldn't it
got
be
the
great?
power, right? Wouldn't it? And they have, and we've seen what's happened, and we need to be able to, to thrive in that environment as well. There's a lot of crooked stuff going on. There's a lot of people bending rules, changing rules, making rules.
You guys got to get a big actor or movie star or somebody out there in the mainstream media,
Agreed.
the brain drain news, Hollywood to promote you guys.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh yeah.
Right. No, I mean, he's making a really good, I appreciate what he's doing for climate change. He stopped it, his Emmys, he spoke about it there. He didn't go all into thank you for my reward. He went into check it out. I'm going to say it to you again. And he's not stopping. And that's what it takes. If you've got that kind of following, and you're out there in the world, make a difference. That's why we want to do films. That's why we want to do comics. That's why we want to do cartoons. Get these people involved. Let them play a role in one of these features. Make it a feature film. I don't care. We made a lot of films about the bees that are cartoons and everything, but people aren't changing their minds. So it needs to be picked up to the next level. And I think, yeah, you'll get some A-level actors going, yeah. And I have some really good friends that are in acting, and I have a producer that's been trying to make a TV series for me for a long, long time, but I keep being told, wait. And now I know why. It's just like, everything has its time, and this is our time. We're right now, we're having a conversation, and regardless if it's reaching the airwaves yet, it's having an effect. And that's what it takes. We have to be able to have an effect. I'm not on a soapbox. I'm one human being sharing my perspective, and it's just come from having open eyes. And, I cannot be blinded, and I don't choose to be. And I don't choose to be abused. And I definitely don't choose to be abused by those who were elected to protect me. And I definitely don't choose to be abused by those who were elected to protect me. And it's happening on both sides. All the way at the top, I got to wonder why that guy said what he just said. And all the way at the bottom, I got to wonder why that guy just killed a kid. And on both sides of this fence, we got people acting out of line, and nobody is stopping them. And so it's like, what do we do? Well, we don't do anything about them because they're out of line. And they're going to continue to be out of line until somebody stops them. And sadly, that usually takes a military action. How far are we from solution? And it just steps on more toes and creates more enemies and continues this loop perpetually. It's the only thing in over unity on this planet. It's unstoppable, so it seems. But I think that we need to get down to the grassroots of things. We need to take back our own homes, and we need to create our own systems that will make those homes self-sufficient, capable of running themselves, so that nobody is reliant upon any big systems. It's foolish to be reliant on big systems that are at war anyways. It's foolish. So we need to be less lemming. And then, if you don't know you're running for a cliff, if you see the guy next to you, stop too. I mean, you got time, it's a cliff. Once you jump off, unless you got wings or brought a parachute, it's it. And if you saw somebody else jump off and you heard them scream, it's probably it. And that's kind of what this is. People just don't get it. They don't grok it. Stranger in a Strange Land was a great story. It told about the human condition in a way nobody else did. And that's what we need today. We need people who are willing to speak to the human condition and not just speak to it from a place of like, oh, you're doing this or you're doing that. Because that's irrelevant to me. It's a fact. And if it's a fact, then I want it to be a fact. And if it's a fact that needs more education, then we need curriculum for that. And we need schools to say, hey, this is important, and everybody needs to be working on it because it's important to us, it's important to generations that come after us, and it's important to everybody we've just left behind, or we're left behind by. And legacy, legends. I mean, today on the craze is all these Marvel's films. And what I love about the Marvel's films and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all these characters is they just don't stop. It doesn't matter if they're fighting Hydra or whatever they're fighting, they continue moving forward. And they continue staying a team, getting each other's back, learning each other's back, figuring out how to work together so they can thrive. And that's what we all need. We all need camaraderie in our own countries, in our own cities, in our own neighborhoods. We need to end separation. We need emotional intelligence. That needs to be a skill set. It needs to be taught in school. Right at the beginning, I think, honestly. And there's just so much more we can do. And 90 issues is just the tip of the iceberg, honestly. I know there are more. And these 90 aren't the most critical, but the first few are. And, going back to radiation really quick, the thing with radiation, like you were saying, is there's two parts. Some of it is actually good for the evolutionary, for the evolutionary standpoint, from what I understand. But then the other stuff that comes from these fallouts and all that stuff, it can't. It can't even hit certain environments because once it does, it's like a long time before you can go back in there. But we're already seeing in places like Chernobyl a difference. And I have a friend who is a health practitioner for alternative health who survived Chernobyl. And she is a beautiful woman, and she's out there doing that work, and she's speaking about what her people went through. And so there's possibilities for everyone, no matter where you're at. Even if you have cancer, I've met a gentleman that he had 6 days to live. He showed up at a health conference in the desert, and learned how to save his life. And he's still alive today. And that was 4.5 years ago. He shrunk that brain tumor all the way back down to nothing. Did it on his own. He did it with raw chicken.
Raw chicken?
Freaked me out. But somebody told him, he started it, and he immediately felt the difference. I don't recommend it to everybody. I don't recommend it to anybody, actually. But and I don't eat chicken. I'm a vegetarian. But it worked for him.
Not the stuff you can pick up at like Walmart, but like actual free range chickens bouncing around. Okay.
Yeah. And he did like a ceviche type, thing. He marinated it. He didn't eat it just raw, but it was raw. He didn't cook it. Or he cooked in the lemon juice or whatever, but that was the most. And he wasn't supposed to cook it too much from what he was shared with me. But anyway, he's one of many. I mean, I've been in these, this is what I do with my spare time, is I'll go out and I'll just volunteer and hold hands for people that are dying, and the last conference we did in Arizona was at Epic Eden Hot Springs with David Wolf and David Wilcox. And those gentlemen were amazing. I think, they both are doing whatever they do to maintain their fame today. And I think they're both amazing. And I think people don't really understand who they are as humans unless they've met them. But, I'm not going to get into all that. But anyways, what I'm saying is that they've showed up in the desert for 17 days and helped people save their lives. And some of these people had never even camped before, much less camped in the desert. And it was amazing. And, good friends of mine catered all that food, and it was all raw food, chaga, reishi mushroom teas, electrolytes, hot springs, mineral springs, good talks, information, education, and a lot to take home and actually begin to implement and integrate into their lives. And I don't know the exact percentage of that last event, but I have met some of those people, and they're still alive. And some of them were on their last leg. And so, there's so much that we can learn and begin to act from, and I just think it takes us all. I really do. I think that you're right. I think that if we got some big names involved, that it would accelerate quickly. And I'm open to that. We're not closing off to the politician. If you're strong-hearted and good-willed and really, really, really believe in the earth, not profit but people, let's do it. I mean, really, let's do it. I mean, what better chance than you have than right now? And we have every single solution, from energy to waste to shelter to organic growing environments to making microclimates to grow anything we want. We can start bringing animals. I have one project happening down in Arizona where they have just got the approval to turn 2,000 acres into an animal reserve. And so they can start taking in these animals, and people don't know this, but there's animals waiting in places just so they don't get killed. I just visited a safari here in Oregon for my anniversary with my beloved, and it was magical. It was the first place that didn't feel like a zoo. I drove through this huge wetland and got to be right up to my car with zebras and not lions, but zebras and water buffalo and everything from Africa to Asia to America. And in some cases, like the Siberian tiger, they're the last of their kind. This is the only place they can survive, and they're halfway across the world.
Well, I got to jump in here real quick because a moment ago you said that you don't want a politician that cares about profit, and I appreciate that and I respect that. And you also have to think about the possibility of, well, in order for it to become mainstream, it's going to have to become profitable, and I think that it can. So here's the bridge, Aeon. In my opinion, you find a way to make it profitable, which I think it is profitable, to grow organic and to make things self-sufficient and make energies out of, or to harness energies from solar and wind and other things. I mean, there's just so many opportunities that maybe there's nothing wrong with making profit if you use it for the right things. I mean, we have to make money to survive right now because we don't live in a Venus Project society. And as much as people like to bash the dollar bill, I mean, and say that there's nothing back in it. Well, there is something back in it. Consumerism, people back it.
True.
But if you took that money and said, okay, well, we're going to create things that harness free energies. We're going to make spaceships that you can go out and travel the stars. We're going to create we're going to make that old building that's got 50 bums living in there. Well, we're going to help them turn it into this really cool self-sufficient building, and they're making gardens and other opportunities. So there's so many things that could be done with money if it's just used for the right thing. So I think that in order to find that politician or somebody out there, because most people are in it for themselves in that line of work, even though they portray as they're for the people, unfortunately they're not, So in most cases, and not all cases, hey, let's find a way to make it profitable and get it to the masses. Let's make being healthy profitable.
I agree with you. And I've invented something I call a drip economy. And everybody profits.
Perfect. Let's get into that. Yeah.
It's the best residual income you could possibly imagine. And all you have to do is start at home. And that's what the 90 Issues and 90 Solutions is also about. It's about teaching you how to start at home. How to deal with the radiation if it's close to your house. How to start bees if you can. How to grow your own food so that you produce a profit. How to grow your own mushrooms to create $250,000 in profit every single year from 200 square feet of land. We do have a prosperity plan. But again, a lot of times I'm speaking to lemmings and they're running the other way and all they think about is surviving the day. So the difference for me between profit and an economy is a profit. The difference for me is really just that. It's the difference between people who make a profit just to make a profit while continuously exploiting those under them, and people who live in an economy and coexistence that continue to share their wealth and create more wealth just simply by continuing to create more balance in their own environments. So if you live in a self-sufficient home, the first thing you get is no cost. So it doesn't cost you anything anymore to live there. It may cost you something in the beginning, but all that can be offset, and it should be. Because if you could teach somebody how to grow their own food, and even if you can't create a system to where they're actually powdering it, which I think that you can, but to where they're actually powdering it on site, you just create a trade system where those foods are sent locally to a place that can. And you create local places that do that next step. Everybody gets a drip. If you're involved, you get a drip. It's an incentive. Get involved. Get a drip. If I give you an hour, then my drip's worth an hour. If I give you an hour that's worth 100 hours, then I get maybe 1%. If I make $1 off of I have a company, Genesis Refined. We're looking at producing hemp CBD oil, non-THC, won't get you high. It's simply to help people with cancer. And we're working with people, growers, to isolate that singularity. There are people who say that it has to have a certain amount of this and a certain amount of that. We're still trying to get down to the science, and we have a chemist that's helping us work with that. But our point is, we don't need to make millions of dollars off of people. If we made $1 off of every single bottle we sold and sold $1 million, or sold 1 million bottles and helped 1 million people, then we become millionaires. Wow, that's amazing. If everything worked like that, we would all be wealthy and we'd all be living in wealth. If we didn't need to buy vehicles that break down, if we didn't need to buy technology that nobody is responsible for once it breaks down, if we changed the system to where there was more responsibility with those who are creating. Like if I was creating a technology that was, cutting edge today, and I was going to offer it to the world tomorrow, I would want that world to go, it broke. And I would just go, yeah, let me have that back, because I want to see exactly how it broke so we can reverse engineer and make sure it doesn't break again. And, matter of fact, we're going to send you the next best model because that keeps you as a good customer. And we can do that with every single thing in existence. If you live in a house that's unhealthy, you got the bathroom bashers and you got Home Depot that can come in there and tear the whole thing down and build you something that's going to be cohesive to your specifics. We can customize. And it doesn't cost any more than it's costing those buildings to remain empty. It costs less. All these solutions eventually cost us less, which makes us more wealthy. And so I think profit in itself it's just a thing. It's just something that's pulled and torn and twisted and turned and taken out of context. I think that living according to a balanced, building a balanced ecology creates its own prosperity. I think that homesteaders learned that. I think that that's what they were thinking when they got 2 cows and 4 chickens and this field for that and that for this. And, and I think they did well for a long time until somebody came in there and forced them out or told them, no, you need to use this for this and this is all you get. And if you don't do this, then. And I think that's all a part of where we're at today. I totally agree with you that that we have to use the terms that people are used to while they're surviving. And I agree with that. And every single thing that I'm about to share through this project will have an edge that can be profited from. All I'm asking is let's not exploit it. Let's be smart about it. Realize, wow, what do I need to live a year? Okay, let's say I need $60,000 to be happy a year, and that's a lot. But let's say that's what I need to live. If I need that, then what do I need to produce that will give me all of my needs plus extra? And we've worked out the numbers, like vertical growing systems that you can do in your closet to produce all the lettuces that you would spend X amount of dollars on a year. The seeds will cost you $10. And you won't spend those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So that's cut out of your living expenses. It makes you that much more wealthy. It doesn't take too many years to do this. With agroforestry, with people planting trees, we clean the air. With people planting fields of hemp, we deal with the radiation. With people planting mushrooms, Paul Stamets says mushrooms will save the planet. And all we need to do is get people involved. And so all we have to do is provide them as many ways to get involved as we possibly can, and as many avenues that are out there continuing to point to them and point to those things so they connect the dots. So it becomes natural, so it becomes trendy. And that's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see pop artists and rappers and all these people that have everybody's attention make the issues trendy. Make every single goddess on this planet going, yes, bees, yes, trees, let's deal with the radiation, let's deal with everything. Let's deal with our lives. Let's stop hiding. Because that would be legendary. And that would be heroic. That would be amazing. It would be a miracle. And it would be just in the nick of time. I think it's time. And I've just started. So, let's kick it into gear. And I hope that you're my first radio interview. And we're not even completely launched yet. I mean, we're just starting. So we still have some video to make for the first page, and we still have some all 90 of those issues to be filled in. And I want to just speak a little bit more about that, so that people kind of understand where I'm coming from. I'm not an educator. I know a few things about a few things, but I don't know how to set up like curriculums. I don't know how to really orientate people. I just stream of consciousness, and I have so much pouring through me. I try to get it out as fast as it comes through. Try to write down notes like I'm doing while we're talking, so that I have all the things that we've talked about to check in on later. And I just try to keep track the best I possibly can. And so if in anything that you see that I've produced or that's been produced by one of the people who have joined us could be better, please share it in the comments. Come to the Facebook group. Come to the Skype group. Come to the website. Come to the forums that I've created where you can be anonymous or not. Share your ideas. Share your thoughts. If you see an edit, be an editor. Come in there and clean it all up for us. Because we can only catch so much. And the last thing we want people to do is say we're not professional because we don't know how to write, or we're not this because we misspelt a word, or and the last thing we want to do is have people be critical and not look at the issues, because that's what happens in a lemming society. They continue to run in a cliff and go, no, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. And then they fall. And, and that's not what we're about. It's not about right and wrong. It's just about the facts, what's being done about them, and what we can do about them. And we need as much input as we can possibly get. We don't want to overwhelm people either, though. We want to keep it simple. I think we can sum it up pretty easily. I've had some pretty masterful writers come in there and concisely put it in a way that makes it really easy to follow. And I like that. I don't know that every writer is going to write it like that, and I don't necessarily want to create some kind of rigid system to where people aren't free to express themselves. But I would like it to be concise and cohesive and stick to the point, and not too much ranting or pointing fingers, and there's no abuse allowed. So we need to meet this on a harmonic level. I come at this as a peaceful inhabitant. I'm on Earth. I want to be on Earth. I think that we all deserve to be on Earth. I think that we can be on Earth and live together in a thriving ecosystem. And so If you want to join, there are multiple ways that I've laid out for you to do so. If you're a screenwriter, we're looking for them. If you're a filmmaker, we're looking for them. If you're a photographer, we're looking for them. Videographer, comic book maker, any of the medias, any of the arts, you all can play a part. You can paint a painting and have somebody look at it and go, wow, I see. And I see a lot of those. I support a gallery every year down in Tucson at the Gem Show, and we do 2 weeks there with the with the Gem and Jam, and we serve them tea and give them an after-hour party and put up art on the wall and try to slow them down a bit and have them look and take a look and see what these artists are depicting. And so, anybody can play. All of you can play. This involves everyone. It's not me, not just me, and I don't know completely how to approach this other than I am. So yeah, let's play. There's a lot of playing to do, and there's a lot of ground to cover, and there's a lot of difference we can make, and it doesn't take long. It just takes making friends.
And I think it's great what you're doing. You're networking all different avenues and bringing people together that have a goal in wanting to better society and the planet and make things more self-sustaining. And, I get a lot of people that reach out to us here at the Leak Project. If you ever have somebody that you're working with, an inventor, somebody that wants to get that catapult, feel free to send me an email. They can get in contact with us, and we'll certainly promote that work for them and get them out there to thousands and thousands of people. So,
excellent. Thank you so much.
I'd like to share with our listeners and those that are going to have an opportunity to listen to this in the future. I do want to go ahead and plug your website again if people want to get in contact with you and check out more of your work. It is Aeon Pi Phlo. That's eonpiphlo.com.
That's correct. And then when you come there, the project itself is 90 Issues and 90 Solutions, and you'll just click on that button there at the very top, and then you'll notice that a drop-down menu comes that eventually will have all 90 solutions in it. The first button underneath that is co-writers named and unnamed. So this is where we will place your picture if you want your picture placed, or your avatar if you don't want to be seen, and share a little bit about who's writing, whatever they're writing about, or who's participating in whatever way. And then, like I said, the rest of this will go down through the rest of the 90, and you'll be able to click on each of those pages. It's all going to be hosted on this website. I'm paying, for the domain and everything that's, to keep it going. So we won't ever have a problem with the server issues or anything like that. And it can manage all this material. We're really super interested in community, and we really would love to hear from people who are doing it. And create an open forum amongst us, a collaboration, a cooperation amongst you who are building community and who are, opening your doors to community, and who are purchasing land and don't know what to do with it, or have land and it's just sitting there. We can offer you a beginning, and we'd love to. And, and it's just, just to get the ball rolling, and start you to where you feel like you have something that will support you if you ever need to leave the grid, or if you just want to live off your own. So let's create a solid group focus that keeps the resources flowing and open source this knowledge. There's a good I want to plug a good website. It's a onecommunityglobal.net. I believe. Let me double check. I don't know if they orged it or netted it.
There's so many different dots now.
Right? So it's onecommunityglobal.org. And it is a creating win-win relationships, one community by one community. And it's a completely open source, step-by-step, every single aspect of building a community. Everything you could possibly imagine. And I know Jay Sable very well. He'd be a great person to have on the show. What he's doing is with just a handful of people is absolutely the next thing. And it's a good education platform. And another one is open source ecology. Let me check that one. I think that's .org too. Yes, that's also .org. And that's basically all your tools, everything you would need, open source, to your earth movers, all that stuff to do that beginning land development. These are, I'm finding more and more people that are showing up like, I just want to open source this. More of my inventors, I had 3 of them today, I just want to open source this. And I love that. And the thing that freaks people out is, well, how do you make a profit off of open source? And it's again, it's very hard to explain this, but it's kind of logical when you get it. And how you make a profit off of open source is once you have something that is producing something, then you can do more. And it just really there's just really no other way to explain it. Once you have that availability, that resource that is always open, you can always go there. You can always get, support. There's always other people, who are developing. We see how much computer technology is developed from open source, way more than the other side. It's just exploited on the other side. Today, one of the most fascinating things to me today is games online. Candy Crushers makes $850,000 a day from in-game purchases. It's a free game, but it makes $850,000 a day from people buying pieces of candy to play a game.
Right. Pieces of candy on the
And that's
internet.
all right. And it's real.
It's
And
only
people-
$10 and you'll get 50,000 Candy Crush coins.
Exactly. And we need to wake up to what is happening and what we're spending our money on and why we're complaining about not having. And turn that tide to where people are playing games that are actually gaining something. They're playing games that teach them how to play the game of life, how to become more healthy, how to, and if there's all kinds of games that score achievements for this and that, especially the shoot 'em up games. You've got 9 shots, 90 out of 100 shots, or you showed up 15 times, you played for 15 minutes. There's 1,000 ways to offer people incentives, and keep them coming back for more. And keeping them opening their own living library and their Akashic records so they'll keep wanting more and keep diving deeper into this life. Life is about living. Life isn't about waiting to die. That's silly. It's silly that anybody ever told us, oh, you gotta die someday. It's silly that people told me when I was a kid, oh, you better live, you better have as much fun as you can because you're gonna grow old and die someday. And now, here I am, 40, having to deal with what I was doing when I was 20, drinking every single night and being stupid, racing cars and doing all the things that I was thinking I would never have a chance to do, and I needed to do it now and blah, 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 blah. And, I don't have any regrets, and I'm not telling people not to have fun, but I am saying, wake up, and let's have some real fun that makes a difference at the same time in our environments. And let's create new ways to have fun and entertain ourselves. And, just to be honest, these games are just killing time. They're not doing anything else. And half the people that play those games sit there with their Cheetos and their soda pops and all the things that are killing them while they're sitting in one spot for hours. And just if you don't know, if you sit at a desk for longer than an hour, stuff starts happening in your body that is bad for you and will continue to be bad for you over a course of time, creating things like varicose veins, creating blood clots, creating X. And so, if you sit at a desk all the time, make a habit of getting up every 15 to 30 minutes, just stretching for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, or going to get some water, or going to get something to maintain this, this type of job. I sit at the computer a lot. Luckily, I have a beloved that gets me up and moves me around, and I also have my own regiment that gets me up and moves me around. But sometimes I've got to sit here. Like right now, I've been here for an hour and 47 minutes. And if I stood up, I would have to pull my headphones out. But that's just part of the game. I've got to learn how to be able, if I'm going to be doing this, and I've got to learn how to work with it, And that's what it's about. It's just about taking a look, recognizing for ourselves. I do an inventory every single day. I say, what were my highs? What were my lows? I lift my highs up in tomorrow, and then let my lows go. I resolve and dissolve the mystery of what has showed up today, and kickstart a new one. Right. I'm never afraid when I go to sleep. I never lay myself down to sleep and hope I awake. I just go to sleep, and I wake up revived, ready, knowing that 8 hours is going to do more repair than I do all day. So, yeah.
Well, right on, man. I got to tell you, Aeon, what you're doing is fantastic. Please keep us updated here at the Leak Project. We'll make sure to put any new material you have on our channel. And yeah, may the force be with you, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to know you, brother.
It's an honor to know you, too. We'll talk again. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Leak Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and we have a very special guest with us tonight, Aeon Pi Phlo. He's got a really cool website right now, and we're going to be discussing 90 problems and 90 solutions, basically. Not every single one, but that's the overall topic. You can check out his work at aeonpiphlo.com. Aeon, it's great to have you on here with us tonight. How are you doing?
Excellent. Yourself?
Doing fantastic. So I just want to say, before we get started, you reached out to us here at the Leak Project a few weeks ago. Actually, I don't even think it was a few weeks ago. It's probably just more like a week or so ago. And we were able to put something together. I went to your website, and I saw at the very front of it, our unified mission, elevating brilliant local innovations into thriving global solutions. And I did a little more research into what you're doing, and I think it's just great. So if you would, for our listeners and people that haven't heard of you before, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll segue from there.
Perfect. So a little bit about myself is I kind of grew up on the side of the tracks that a lot of people in America grow up on, where you have to prove you're tough early. I grew up under a father who believed that you never spare the rod because you'll spoil the child. He was a very abusive man, and so it pushed me out of the house, pushed my mom out of the house, and pushed my brothers and sisters out of the house eventually. I left home when I was 10 and was on the streets of LA by the time I was 12. And then was able to get back into where my mom was at. It was unsafe to be with her for a while. And finally I was able to get back in with her and try to start, doing what a teenager would be about ready to do. And to keep the story short, for me, I started realizing early on that there was a lot happening in the world that wasn't supporting new life and wasn't supporting, children, and wasn't giving, our generation an opportunity, which was the 70s and 80s and 90s, an opportunity to really learn about what was coming down the pipeline and what was already past the 11th hour and our real history and, the state of the earth, etc. So I began, probably when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, went to college for medical anthropology and began to learn something about the state of our culture and how it's affected on a medical level as well as on a spiritual level, physical level, and what environments were surrounding those people who were suffering from X. And that took me deeper into a study of just really learning about the Earth and finding out that the Earth isn't doing so well and hasn't been doing so well for some time. But people have been so locked into this technological craze and this industrial revolution that they got left behind and didn't even know it. And so I began self-same teaching from that point forward and began learning as much as I possibly could about what was really happening. And it took quite a while to catch up because, as you may know, calling yourself a Leak Project, there's a lot that's not being leaked for quite some time. And only maybe in the last decade have we seen those floodgates start to open.
Well, it's been great the past decade, too. And with that said, it seems like for every gem that's out there, there's going to be 8 piles of crap that you have to sift through to get to the truth, So you really got to be careful what you're finding out on the internet. And I applaud people that actually get to the data and don't just say, well, I heard this, and my friend Bob said that his brother's uncle told him about this thing that's going to happen. And that's what I like. What you're doing is you're kind of bringing local thriving communities together and not just talking about it. You're actually going out there and doing it. So
yeah, we're showing up on the land. And in many cases, the first thing I have to do if I show up on the land is clean up. And I've been on 27 projects now. And all shapes and sizes, all types of people, and some very interesting. We have some very interesting data, and we've kind of changed our direction in the last couple of years into just really focusing on what it will take to create a self-sustainable, self-sufficient living environment, and how to teach people, because people are coming out of a state. I'll just put it that way. How to teach people how to live amongst each other, not to develop these, rulerships, not to develop cohesion, to develop emotional intelligence, and to be able to take in their environment in whatever state it's in and begin to restore it to a healthy living environment.
Now,
and so go ahead. Please.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were pausing there for a second. If you can actually bring things back to the way that they were before the industrial boom. And I got to say, I think that there's so many good things out there with industry and technology and advancements. I mean, that's fantastic. But the problem is there's got to be a balance there. And I think that we're at the point now with the resources, technology, knowledge base available, we could produce things that use far less resources and go a lot longer, last, for longer periods of time before they break. So with that said, bringing local communities and stuff together, I think makes a big difference. So yeah, please continue.
Truly. And it's really about, right at that point, it's really about surviving or thriving. And, we've been taught to survive. We've been taught that we've had to survive for quite some time, that we were surviving our parents' mistakes or what have you. And we're moving out of that. We're moving out of that state into what does it take for just me, an individual, to live in a consistent state with myself. So I grew up eating hamburgers from McDonald's, and I grew up doing the things everybody else did. I drank a 64-ounce Mountain Dew every single day, and went to work and sweated, and did hard labor, building houses and etc. And so I totally get that it's, for some people, it's a lot harder than for others, especially if they've had drug addictions or pharmaceuticals or blah, blah, blah. So, to teach somebody to move out of that, fight or flight syndrome and that survive syndrome, we've decided that the best way to do that is to get them into a balanced ecosystem. So this is why with the 90 issues and 90 solutions, now I've outlined. This project is a writing project. It's also going to be, there's screenwriters who have stepped forward and say they want to make each one into a film. There's writers who want to potentially turn the whole thing into a book. We have comic book writers who say, we can make a dozen heroes out of this and villains and make it really infotaining and edutaining. And, be able to really keep the focus on what is important. Like the first one is the bees. Einstein said that if the bees disappear, we had 2 years. So what has our infinite, genius and technologists done? They began to genetically modify bees, potentially creating bees, potentially creating drones that are supposed to act like
right,
bees.
The drone bees.
Yeah. All of that is just to try to maintain an environment, try to maintain balance in an environment that is consistently failing and consistently showing up year after year with more mass extinctions. And we're so caught up in this rat. I'll just stop right here. We're so caught up in this rat race of surviving that we're not recognizing the lines and their connecting dots and how one thing does lead to another and how you can see the decline in each and every place that it's happening. Where it started, how it got to the place that it is now, and why it's still happening moving forward. Go ahead.
And I want to kind of give the microphone to you here in a second, but I just have to jump in because it makes me think about how you go to the grocery store, and if you want to pick up some organic fruits and vegetables, they cost about 50% more, sometimes double, even more than that. And then when you get into certain products like cereal, breads, etc., the food that has less stuff in it, less crap, it costs more money. So it's like, okay, so how does this make sense? Well, they say that if they're going to get this corn without spraying stuff all over the crops, that they've got to have a lot more people out there and pay higher labor costs. But then when you talk to people that actually were a part of farms that weren't sprayed with all these nasty chemicals, GMO seeds, etc., many years ago, they said that there was less problems with what was, with the crops themselves causing different diseases, the soils, and so it seems like there's a give and take in every scenario. So let me get this correct, what you're talking about is doing local type stuff, so you don't have to outsource something on the other side of the world, and even though they're producing it for cheaper over there, if you're doing it here locally, then you can cut down on the transportation costs and provide things here that are going to be more consistent and easier on the environment.
Correct. And it's all about crowdsourcing today, so, to be able to live in a thriving environment, you have to create your own way. And so, you don't need, we need bees everywhere. So, there are companies that are now stepping forward who are offering anybody who wants to start their own apiary everything they need to do it. And that gets it started. Now, there's all kinds of people with that survival mechanism still going off of them, and they're afraid of bees. Well, I mean, I've never, ever, ever, ever had to wear a suit. And I've been around bees for about a decade now. And I will sit by the hive and watch them wake up and sit down there with the sunset and watch them go to sleep. And they've never, ever given me a problem. The only time they give a problem is when you're disturbing them and when they think they're being threatened. So it's not really a big deal to be a beekeeper today. It's actually a very, very good thing to learn how to do because it'll teach you a lot about yourself. But that's just one aspect. So, getting people more into this, into this aspect is going to provide real, bees for the environments. But that's only one step. And so another way of thriving is to invite into your environment, like you're talking about, organic foods. And yes, it's gone way past where it should have as far as food is concerned. And I eat a very good diet today, but it took a long time to get here, and I almost didn't make it. My body, I had leaking gut. I had all kinds of stuff from eating McDonald's hamburgers every single day, and drinking a beer with my buddies every single night. I had no idea I was being killed from the inside out. Had no idea, being poisoned. And then I started looking at the back of the boxes, and it blew my mind that I hadn't done that yet. And then I got a few people in my life who said, "Here, this is how you can bring your life back into order." And I joined a raw food revolution back in 2007. We put on an event in Sedona called the Raw Spirit Festival, and brought 2,500 people to Sedona all around raw food. And then I started meeting the cancer patients and all the people who were dying of cancer because of their diets. And many of them are still alive today because they changed their diets simply to raw organic food. And then I started stepping into this world and checking out, why is it that they're needing to throw so much poison into the ground in order to keep these pests away? Well, first the thing is companion planting. So if you know exactly what to plant, where to plant, how to plant, then you won't have certain problems in your ecosystem. You can plant according to what is necessary to take care of those problems in the plan. Next thing is soil amendment. So the biggest deal was they were using soil that was already depleted of most of its minerals. So it had no way of coming back to begin with. And all those eggs were down in that soil, or tilled down in that soil, just ready to pop out to the next whatever was available. So these are all just basic things that our great grandfathers knew and practiced and had no issues with. You didn't have mass invasions back then. You only had mass invasion when people started domesticating and bringing things together that didn't belong together to begin with.
No,
And you go ahead, please.
no, yeah. So with right now, what you're doing basically, going and reaching out to local businesses, to schools, to mom and pop shops.
So for me personally, I've been reached out to for quite some time. And so my job for my company, Timeless Solutions, is I'm a sustainable research developer. So I've been meeting inventors with the solutions. And so my job has been to get those solutions across the board. And that's not very easy with some of these solutions. And so what the